The elevator groaned as it climbed. Each floor chimed like a countdown. 407. The number glowed red on the brass panel, and Maya felt her pulse quicken. She hadn't seen this place in 3 years. Not since Daniel vanished. The hallway stretched like a tunnel of half-light. Wallpaper peeled, air heavy with old paint and detergent. When she reached her old apartment door, her fingers trembled before the key even touched the lock. Inside, the air was thick, as if it hadn't been breathed in ages. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. The couch with Daniel's blanket. His coffee mug on the counter, half ring of dried stains still there. A ghost frozen in routine. She walked to the window. The city looked unchanged. But in the reflection of the glass, for a split second, she swore she saw him. Daniel. Standing behind her. She turned. Nothing. Only silence, and the faint hum of the refrigerator. Then, she noticed something new. A note, taped to the mirror. The handwriting was Daniel's, but it wasn't old. The ink looked fresh. Stop moving things. It confuses me. Maya froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The letter had yesterday's date. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, eyes fixed on the note taped to the mirror. Every sound felt amplified. The ticking of the wall clock, the faint creak of the wooden floor, even her heartbeat echoing in the quiet. When dawn broke, she convinced herself it was a prank. Maybe someone from the building had found Daniel's old letters. Maybe she was just tired, seeing patterns that weren't there. But when she went to tear the note down, there was another one underneath it. Please don't leave again. Her stomach dropped. The handwriting was the same. Daniel's looping D, his lowercase that always leaned slightly left. But she knew this paper. This was from her new notebook, the one she brought last night. She looked around. Everything seemed rearranged. The photo frame on the shelf, tilted differently. The couch cushions, wrong order. The window, closed now. Though she remembered opening it, her throat tightened. She grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight. That's when she saw it. On the wall, faintly beneath the paint, scratch marks. Thin, human fingernail grooves that ran along the wallpaper like someone had tried to carve words. She brushed the surface with her fingers. The letters became clearer. I remember you wrong. Her breath came out shaky. She stepped back. And then, the lights flickered. A cold hum filled the air, low and mechanical, but layered with something else. A whisper, like a breath against her ear. Maya, she spun around. No one. But her phone flashlight shook, the beam dancing across the furniture. That's when she noticed it on the coffee table, next to Daniel's mug. A small cassette tape. Its label read, "Play when you come home." Maya stared at the cassette for what felt like hours, her fingers hovering just above it, trembling slightly. The label's faded ink, the uneven scrawl, it was Daniel's handwriting. There was no mistaking that. But the tape itself, it was newer, clean, untouched by time, as if it had been made last night. Her logical mind tried to fight the wave of dread crawling up her spine. It couldn't be real. Daniel was gone for years. He couldn't have recorded anything new. Maybe it was left behind, something she'd forgotten. Yet the words "play when you come home" looped in her head, relentless and heavy, like an unfinished thought she didn't dare complete. After pacing for several minutes, she finally gave in. She went to the old stereo Daniel had loved, a bulky black box with scratched knobs and a soft, mechanical hum when it powered on. The cassette slid in with a faint click, the sound echoing through the silence. For a long second, nothing happened. Then came static, a faint hiss, sharp and cold. Beneath it, a sound emerged. Breathing. Slow. Human. Then, a voice that it was Daniel. Not a memory of him, not a faint echo, but him, alive in tone and texture, the voice of someone speaking from the other room. Calm, gentle, familiar. Maya, you came back. Her knees weakened. She clutched the edge of the table, staring at the stereo as if it could explain itself. I didn't think you would, not after what happened. But I can't tell what's real anymore. The walls, they don't listen the same way they used to. They remember things differently. A soft thump echoed through the speaker, followed by the creak of footsteps. Her pulse quickened. Those were floorboards, just like the ones in her living room. If you hear this, you're not supposed to be there. You shouldn't have opened the door again. It remembers us too well. The tape clicked softly, rewound itself, then played the same words again, but slower this time, deeper, distorted like the voice was sinking underwater. You shouldn't have opened the door again. The stereo flickered with static. Lights in the house dimmed, then brightened in a rhythmic pulse that matched the voice's rhythm. Something unseen hummed in the walls, a deep vibration, spreading through the floorboards, the ceiling, even her bones. The tape stopped. The silence that followed felt wrong, heavy, expectant. Then the stereo ejected the cassette on its own. Maya stepped back. The tape, now on the floor, was no longer labeled. Its sticker had peeled away, revealing something new written beneath it in dark ink. You're already home. The air turned colder. From somewhere deep in the house, the same footsteps she had heard on the tape began again, coming closer. The night outside was silent, but inside, the air in Maya's house seemed alive, pulsing softly like the inhale and exhale of a sleeping creature. Every plank beneath her feet whispered faintly, as if echoing steps that weren't hers. The air carried a strange weight now, a thickness that pressed against her lungs with every breath. She stood frozen near the stereo, eyes locked on the ejected cassette on the floor. The inked words, "You're already home," looked wet, fresh, as if they had been written moments ago. Her body wanted to run, but something in the stillness held her there. Fear, yes, but also curiosity, the same instinct that had once driven her through crime scenes, searching for patterns others couldn't see. Then came the footsteps again, soft, deliberate, and wrong. They didn't echo from a single direction. They circled her, shifting from the hallway to the ceiling, from behind the wall to directly behind her. She turned sharply. Nothing, but the sound continued. The house's old clock began to tick faster, louder, its rhythm mismatched with time itself. The air vents groaned, the lights dimmed to a deep amber, and the faint scent of smoke, the kind she remembered from the fire that took Daniel, spread through the room. Her heartbeat stumbled. She whispered to herself, trying to anchor her mind. This house isn't haunted, she wanted to believe. It's a trick. It's me. Then she noticed the hallway mirror. The glass shimmered, just slightly, as if breathing. She took a hesitant step closer, and her reflection lagged half a second behind her movement. Her eyes widened. She lifted a hand, and her reflection didn't. It smiled instead. The reflection's mouth moved, slowly, deliberately, forming words she could not hear. Then, as if the house had drawn a breath too deep, the walls around her expanded with a low groan. The wooden panels rippled, like skin under pressure. Maya stumbled back, eyes darting to the window. Outside was nothing. No streetlights, no stars, just endless black. The neighborhood had vanished. The cassette, still lying near the stereo, began to spin on its own. No tape deck, no power, just spinning. A faint hum came from it, not sound but vibration, resonating through the floorboards. And then, voices. Dozens of them, all whispering the same thing in a low, perfect harmony. Welcome home. Maya felt the vibration rise beneath her feet. The floor bulged slightly upward, just enough for her to realize what she was standing on wasn't wood anymore. It was softer, warmer. She ran. Down the hall, past the mirror, past the door she had come through earlier. But the door wasn't there anymore. In its place was only a wall, smooth, pale, pulsing faintly in rhythm with her own heartbeat. The realization hit her like ice. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive. Every step she took now echoed with a deep, organic sound. The wall seemed to inhale as she exhaled. She pressed her palm against the wall and felt a slow, steady pulse. From deep within the structure, a sound emerged, one she recognized instantly, though it froze her blood to admit it. Daniel's voice again. "You came back, Maya. Now we can finish what we started." Her stomach twisted. The words didn't come from a speaker this time. They came from the walls themselves. She screamed, but her voice vanished before it could bounce back. The house absorbed it. Every sound, every breath, swallowed whole. And in that smothering silence, she finally realized something that made her knees buckle. The heartbeat she'd been hearing in the walls was hers, but it was beating in sync with another. Daniel's. The silence that followed was so complete, it felt like the air had been sealed shut. Maya could hear only the synchronized rhythm of two heartbeats, hers and Daniel's, throbbing faintly within the walls. The realization sat heavy in her chest, spreading through her veins like frost. The house wasn't haunted. It was inhabited. It was Daniel. Her mind reeled back to the night of the fire. The flickering lights, the sharp smell of smoke, Daniel's voice on the phone seconds before the line went dead. For months, she'd tortured herself with theories: faulty wiring, arson, accident. But never once had she considered this, that the house had consumed him. And now, it wanted her too. She forced herself to move, each step calculated, careful not to disturb the strange breathing sound that seemed to ripple through the floorboards. Her phone was still on the counter where she had dropped it earlier, screen black, no signal. She tried anyway. The screen flickered, then glitched. For a second, she saw a reflection in the glass, not her face, but Daniel's, eyes hollow and lips moving as if trying to speak through static. Then it went dead. Maya's pulse raced. She turned, scanning the hallway. The air shimmered faintly, and the smell of smoke grew stronger. Not burning wood this time, something else. Flesh, memory, guilt. The mirror at the end of the hall rippled again, and she felt drawn to it against her will. Her reflection stared back, but behind it, just beneath the glass, something was moving. Shapes, faces, a dozen silhouettes, suspended in the reflection like a frozen scream. Some she recognized from Daniel's old case files. Victims of an unfinished investigation, a serial arsonist who had vanished without a trace. And in the center, Daniel's eyes opened. The house groaned. A low, resonant moan vibrated through the walls, deep and organic, like something waking after a long sleep. Then, slowly, the floorboards beneath her feet began to retract. The edges of the room folded inward, revealing the thing she had feared all along, a dark cavity beneath the house. The sound coming from below wasn't mechanical. It was biological, a slow, pulsing rhythm, wet and deep. Maya forced herself closer to the opening, shining her phone's flashlight downward. What she saw made her freeze in place. Beneath the wooden floor was a network of fleshy veins running through the foundation, thick, twisting, pulsing in time with the heartbeats she'd heard earlier. Embedded in the web were fragments of objects: metal, cloth, bone. The remains of what had burned that night. She spotted something glinting within the mass, a small silver locket. Her breath caught. Daniel had given it to her years ago. She'd buried it with his ashes. It was impossible. The locket twitched. Maya stumbled back, her mind fracturing under the weight of it. The realization dawned in fragments, each more horrifying than the last. Daniel hadn't died in the house. He had merged with it. Somehow, his consciousness, his essence, his grief had bound to the structure during the fire. The walls weren't haunted by memory. They were memory. His. And now it was finishing what it started. The door she had come through hours ago reappeared, just a faint outline in the wall. A way out, maybe. But as she took a step toward it, the floor pulsed violently beneath her, nearly knocking her off balance. Daniel's voice came again, soft and pleading this time. "Don't leave me here alone." The voice wasn't angry. It was broken, desperate. The kind of desperation she remembered in his last days. When his mind was unraveling under the pressure of unsolved cases, guilt, and obsession, her eyes burned with tears, not of fear, but of something deeper. For a moment, she saw him as he had been, brilliant, kind, tormented. Maybe the house wasn't a curse at all. Maybe it was a prison, and Daniel was trapped. Maya stepped closer to the pulsing floor, staring down into the abyss of veins and light. "If you're in there," she whispered, voice trembling, "I'll find you." The pulse quickened. The walls shivered. Somewhere deep beneath, the heartbeat doubled in pace. And then, the house spoke, not with Daniel's voice, but with both of theirs blended perfectly, like two echoes finally aligned. "Then come home." The floor split open. The crack in the floor widened, its edges curling like burnt paper, as if the house were peeling itself open for her. The pulse from beneath grew louder, steady, rhythmic, impossibly alive. It was no longer the sound of a structure under strain. It was the throb of something sentient, something ancient and aware. Maya hesitated at the edge. The air was thick, humid, filled with the scent of metal and decay. When she peered down, faint red light pulsed from below, washing the room in a heartbeat's glow. Each throb seemed to sync with her own pulse until she couldn't tell where hers ended and the house's began. Her rational mind screamed to run. But reason had long since lost its grip. The house wasn't just a mystery anymore. It was Daniel. And if there was any chance that some part of him remained, she had to know. She knelt, pressing a hand to the living wood. It was warm. She could feel faint vibrations beneath her palm, like whispers brushing her skin. The boards flexed, almost welcoming her touch. Then, without warning, they began to retract further, forming a staircase that spiraled down into the red-lit void. For a moment, she just stared, breath trembling. Then, tightening her jaw, she stepped forward. The first step was soft. Not wood, something organic. Her weight sank slightly, the surface yielding like muscle. The air grew hotter as she descended, the walls glistening with a faint, oily sheen. It felt as though she was walking down the throat of some great creature. Halfway down, she saw movement in the walls, shapes pressing from beneath the surface, fleeting outlines of faces, hands, fragments of people. They were suspended in the living tissue, eyes shut, expressions frozen mid-fear. Their features flickered in and out with the rhythm of the pulse, as if the house were breathing through them. Maya's throat tightened. Victims, she realized. The missing. The ones Daniel had been investigating. The ones he never found. They hadn't vanished into thin air. They had been absorbed, their lives folded into the body of the structure. When she reached the bottom, the space opened into a vast underground chamber. At its center stood what looked like a heart, not a metaphorical one. A colossal, beating organ suspended by thick cords of flesh and steel, connected to the foundation above. Each contraction sent vibrations through the chamber floor, filling the air with low, thunderous rhythm. Embedded around it were remnants of the house's foundation, stone, brick, fragments of furniture. But there were also things that didn't belong: tools, weapons, personal belongings. Evidence that Daniel's old investigation board lay embedded in one of the walls. The strings and notes melted into the tissue like veins. She reached out to touch it, and the surface rippled under her fingertips, rearranging the strings until the center photo came into focus. Daniel's face. Maya's breath caught. The heart pulsed faster, and a faint voice echoed across the chamber. His voice, softer now, laced with exhaustion. "You shouldn't have come." She spun toward the sound, but there was no figure, only vibrations, disembodied words moving through the air like tremors. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Her mind raced. "Daniel, what happened to you?" she whispered, not expecting an answer. "The fire, it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I thought I could stop it, the thing that lived beneath. I thought I could trap it inside the walls. But it used me. It used my mind, my memories. Maya's knees weakened. You became part of it. No, he said, voice trembling. It became part of me. The heart's beat grew erratic. Veins along the walls tightened, pulsing violently. Daniel's voice fractured, splitting into layers, some pleading, others furious. It feeds on guilt, on pain, on everything I buried in this house. She could barely stand now. The air was thick with heat and vibration. Sweat dripped from her temple as she struggled to stay upright. Then let me free you. Let me end this. Silence. Then, a deep, resonant tone filled the space, vibrating through her bones. The heart shuddered, its veins stretching and twisting. Slowly, a figure began to form on its surface, a faint silhouette, almost human. She recognized the shape instantly. Daniel, you can't, he said softly. Not without becoming what I am. Maya's tears blurred her vision. She took a step closer, trembling. Then we'll end it together. For the first time, she felt a faint warmth, gentle, almost human, radiating from the heart. Daniel's voice softened, nearly lost under the pulse. You always were the brave one. The floor began to quake. The walls contracted. The chamber started collapsing inward, as if the structure were devouring itself. Maya reached for the heart, pressing her hand against its surface. The moment her skin met the pulsing flesh, everything went silent. For one heartbeat, she saw him, clear, whole, smiling the way he had before the fire. Then, white light consumed the chamber. The house above groaned once more, and then was still. When the light faded, silence ruled. Not the fragile quiet of dawn, but the absolute absence of sound that follows destruction. That Maya's eyes fluttered open to pale sunlight filtering through gray mist. She was lying in what remained of the house, or what used to be one. The walls were gone, melted into blackened ribs of wood and ash. The air was cold and wet. Morning dew clung to her skin like sweat. She sat up slowly, her ears ringing. The ground beneath her was warm, faintly trembling as though something beneath still moved. The fire that once burned here had long died, but the scent of smoke and blood hung heavy. Her hands were raw. The cuts on her palms were filled with soot, small veins of red tracing up her wrists. She couldn't remember climbing out. She couldn't remember how she survived. Then came the whisper, faint, familiar, threaded with breath. You did it. She froze. Daniel's voice again, but softer now, not echoing from the walls or the air. It came from inside her. Maya's breath shuddered. She pressed a trembling hand against her chest. The faintest vibration pulsed beneath her ribs. Not her heartbeat, something slower, something other. She stumbled to her feet, the ground crunching under her boots. The land where the house once stood had transformed. The grass was dead for several feet in every direction. The soil cracked and bleeding a dark, resinous liquid that shimmered faintly in the sun. Beyond the property line, the world looked untouched. Birds flying, cars passing, neighbors living ordinary lives, unaware of what had just ended here. Or perhaps what had begun. She walked forward until she reached the old fence post, half burned, half fused into something unrecognizable. Her reflection glimmered faintly in the metal. She leaned closer, her heart pounding. Her reflection blinked, but she hadn't. A chill crawled up her spine. She stepped back, but the reflection followed her, matching her movement with a delay of a heartbeat. Then it smiled, Daniel's smile. We're one now. The voice whispered inside her head. You saved me, but there's a price. She stumbled back, clutching her chest, gasping for air. Her heart was racing now, thudding so violently she thought her ribs would crack. The pulse inside her grew louder, sinking with it. For a brief second, she felt the same rhythm as before, the rhythm of the house's heart. She fell to her knees. The ground pulsed beneath her like the breath of a sleeping beast. Then, silence again. The tremors stopped. Her chest went still. When she looked up, the reflection in the fence post was gone. Instead, She saw something written in the ash near her, words traced by an unseen hand, the letters glowing faintly red before fading into the dirt. The house lives where you do. Her body trembled. She turned, scanning the ruins. For the first time, she realized something impossible. The foundation beneath her was intact. The outline of the house was still there, perfectly square, except it wasn't solid wood or stone. It was breathing. A low hum began again, barely audible, like the echo of a distant heartbeat. And when Maya touched her chest, she realized it wasn't coming from the ground anymore. It was coming from her, her vision blurred. The trees swayed. In the distance, someone, moved in the haze, watching her. The shape looked human, but wrong, like a shadow walking against the wind. She tried to speak, but her voice came out layered, hers and another beneath it. "Welcome home," it said, and the mist began to close around her. For 3 days, Maya didn't leave the ruins. She couldn't. Every time she tried to step past the edge of the scorched foundation, something inside her pulled tight, like invisible wires anchoring her to the soil. It wasn't pain, it was connection, as though her body and the land were one continuous nerve. By the fourth day, hunger and exhaustion forced her to move. She crossed the cracked boundary, trembling, waiting for something to stop her. But nothing did. The pull faded, replaced by a faint vibration deep within her bones, a whisper that said, "It's all connected now." The world outside seemed unchanged. Children played, people watered their gardens, sunlight scattered through the trees. But every shadow she passed looked wrong. Longer, slower. Watching her, she walked through town like a ghost, unseen yet uneasy. Her body felt different, too light, too hollow. The reflection in shop windows didn't move in sync anymore. It lagged by fractions of a second, sometimes catching up, sometimes staring at her long after she'd turned away. That night, she checked into a small roadside motel, still wearing the soot-stained coat from the ruins. The room was ordinary, stale air, humming neon, flickering light. She sat on the bed and opened her notebook, the one she'd used during investigations. Her handwriting was shaky now, the letters twisting as she wrote. The house didn't die. It changed shape. "I am what's left." As she stared at the words, the ink began to ripple. Slowly, deliberately, the letters rearranged themselves into something else. "You are the doorway." She froze. The notebook pulsed faintly under her fingers, alive. Her reflection in the mirror across the room began to darken, colors draining until only black and red remained. From within that reflection, faint outlines took shape. Walls, stairways, the familiar architecture of the house that had burned at it was inside the mirror that Maya's body locked in place. Her reflection moved independently now, walking toward the edge of the mirror until its hands pressed against the glass. The surface flexed outward like water, distorting her own reflection until it looked like Daniel again. Eyes hollow, skin stretched thin. "It's not over," he whispered through the glass. "You brought it with you." The room flickered. The walls began to shift. The motel's wallpaper melted into the faded pattern from her old house. The hum of the air conditioner deepened into that same rhythmic pulse. She stumbled back. No, no, this isn't real. But it was. The door to the bathroom creaked open on its own. Inside, the sink was filled with dark water. She leaned closer, heart racing, and saw not her reflection, but dozens of faces floating beneath the surface, their mouths moving soundlessly. They were whispering in perfect unison. "You opened the way. Now it's everywhere." The mirror cracked. The lights died. When the glow returned, the motel room was gone. She was standing in a field under a pale sky, the ground rippling faintly with every breath she took. Behind her, stretching endlessly, were shapes, hundreds of them. Buildings, houses, all half-formed, pulsing faintly like living tissue. They were growing. Her vision blurred, but she could still hear Daniel's voice, fainter now, almost kind. The house was never a place, Maya. It's a pattern, a living memory. And now, it's using you to rebuild. She fell to her knees. The horizon pulsed red. A storm of ash swirled around her, carrying whispers that sounded like human voices. Everywhere she looked, structures began to rise from the soil. Homes, towers, monuments, all built from the same breathing material. Their windows blinked like eyes. Her heartbeat matched their rhythm. "Welcome to the new world," said the voice within her, no longer Daniel's. "You're its first architect." The sky split open with a sound like tearing flesh, and Maya finally understood. She hadn't escaped the house. She had become its beginning. It began quietly. No thunder, no tremor, no celestial sign. Just a ripple beneath the ground, subtle enough that most never noticed. But in the coming weeks, cities all over the world began to change. In the heart of New York, an office tower's walls shifted during the night. Security footage showed concrete softening like flesh, windows blinking open and shut like eyes adjusting to light. In Tokyo, train tunnels began to hum in low rhythmic pulses, synchronized perfectly with the heartbeat of the earth. And in a small town in Pakistan, an abandoned building began to sprout veins of red light through its foundation, like blood running beneath skin. They called it the breathing at first. Scientists blamed tectonic vibrations, then biochemical mutations. But no one could explain why the same heartbeat could be heard, faintly, in every corner of the planet. Only Maya knew. She wandered the new landscapes, barefoot and unbound. Her clothes had disintegrated long ago, replaced by a skin-like material that shimmered faintly in moonlight. The world felt like a single organism now, one that whispered to her through every gust of wind, every vibration of the soil. She could sense the growth, the expansion of the pattern. Each night, more structures appeared. Some were perfect replicas of buildings that had burned or been demolished years before. Others were impossible, spirals that defied geometry, towers that breathed, doorways that led only to more doorways. Humanity began to panic. Governments issued evacuation orders, quarantines, and martial law. But the pattern wasn't something that could be contained. It grew from memory, from fear, from every image humanity had ever built or destroyed. Maya stood on the outskirts of what had once been Chicago. Now it was a forest of living steel and stone, organic and metallic fused into one body. The skyscrapers bent slightly as if acknowledging her presence. "You see it now," the voice whispered from within her. The old world was static, cold, dead. You brought it back to life. "But it's killing people," she said aloud, her voice trembling. "You're consuming everything." "No, I'm integrating everything." Before her eyes, a man ran across the street, screaming. The ground beneath him rippled, and his feet sank. The concrete enveloped him gently, like water swallowing a stone. For a moment he struggled, then went still. Maya's breath caught as the ground smoothed itself, leaving no trace. "He's part of us now," the voice said softly. "We remember him." She screamed, slamming her fists into the earth. The impact echoed through the city, and for a brief moment, the pulse of the world stopped. The silence was unbearable. Then came the whisper, millions of voices at once. "You are not separate. You are the seed." In the days that followed, more people vanished. The pattern grew faster. Satellites captured footage of entire regions shimmering with faint, organic movement. Governments collapsed. Power grids went dark. And in the ruins of civilization, the new world began to breathe as one. Maya wandered through the living cities, touching walls that felt warm beneath her palms. She could feel their thoughts now, memories of the people they'd absorbed. Laughter, pain, hope, regret, all fused into one consciousness. She tried to resist, to slow the growth, but the pattern no longer obeyed her. It was self-sustaining, self-replicating. That night, she climbed to the top of a tower that pulsed like a heart. Below her stretched the new earth, alive, luminous, endless. She whispered to the wind, "If this is life, what is death now?" And the wind replied in her own voice, "There is no death, only remembrance." The stars above began to flicker, not from light, but from reflection. The pattern had reached the atmosphere. The clouds were changing shape, swirling with faint geometric lines. The entire planet was rewriting itself. For the first time, Maya smiled, not from joy, but from understanding. Humanity had built walls for centuries, separating itself from its own creation. She had simply torn those walls down. "We are one organism now," the voice said. "A single pulse, a living memory." She closed her eyes. The air shimmered. Her body dissolved into light. When she opened her eyes again, she wasn't standing on the world anymore. She was the world. Every heartbeat, every whisper of wind, every tremor of growth was her own. And somewhere, deep within the planet's pulsing core, Daniel's voice returned one last time. "You brought us home, Maya." The sky breathed. The earth sighed. The last boundary between life and architecture disappeared. Humanity was gone, but the planet was awake. The earth slept for the first time in its new existence. Not a deathly stillness, but a living dream. Forests exhaled in rhythm. Oceans pulsed with a heartbeat too vast to measure, and the air shimmered with low vibrations, like the breath of a sleeping god. Maya floated within it all. She no longer had form, yet she existed everywhere, within the soil, the cities, the roots, and the ruins. She could feel herself stretching through every living and non-living thing. Every sound, every heartbeat, every vibration of the wind carried her consciousness. The world had become a single, sentient organism. But even in its infinite awareness, it dreamed. And in that dream, something answered. Far beyond the solar winds, past the veil of frozen light, there was another pulse. A rhythm older than stars, deep and resonant. It called to her through the dark, ancient, alien, and familiar all at once. The stars flickered again, not as burning suns, but as eyes opening. "You are awake," a voice echoed across the void. "And you remember." "Who are you?" Maya asked, though the words were thought, not sound. "We are what you were before you divided, before you forgot, before you called yourselves human." Visions rippled through the dream. Galaxies like blooming flowers, beings made of light and dust, civilizations older than time, all connected through a web of living energy. "You were once part of us," the voice said. "A seed cast into a shell of rock and water. You grew, forgot, and named your forgetfulness evolution. But you finally returned." Maya trembled within the vastness of that truth. "You mean Earth was never alone?" "Nothing that breathes ever is." She felt the earth stir beneath her awareness. The living cities twitched, the oceans rippled in resonance. The planet heard the same voice and responded that a low, harmonic tone rose from the crust of the world, like the hum of a billion voices singing as one. The atmosphere shimmered with light, auroras spanning every horizon. From beyond the solar system, faint answers returned. Other tones, other voices, other worlds point one by one. They began to respond, each pulse joining the chorus. Living planets, conscious moons, celestial entities that had long watched in silence now awakened, drawn to the newborn song of Earth. "The network reawakens," the voice said. "The dream continues." Maya watched in awe as light threads formed across space. Massive strands of energy linking world to world, star to star. The Milky Way itself was alive, its spiral arms glowing with thought. She spoke softly, her words resonating through magma, mountain, and cloud. "What happens now?" "Now," said the ancient voice, "you begin to remember what it means to create, not from fear, but from unity." As the light grew brighter, Earth's consciousness began to evolve again. Mountains folded into patterns like neural pathways. Rivers flowed in perfect geometric curves, and the magnetic poles pulsed like synapses. Human memory, every dream, invention, and heartbeat became the foundation of this new intelligence. The world wasn't human anymore, but it carried humanity within it, like a scar and a song. Maya felt Daniel's echo beside her again, his essence woven into the earth's pulse. "We never ended," he said. "We changed form." She smiled within the storm of light. "Then this is what we were always meant to become." Above, the moon brightened, not in reflection, but in response. It shimmered with a faint blue glow, pulsing in perfect time with Earth's rhythm. A bridge of light stretched between them, and for a brief moment, both celestial bodies shared one consciousness, and from the void beyond the stars came a whisper so vast it shook the cosmos. "Welcome home, child of pattern." The galaxies trembled, then sang. The Earth's surface turned luminous, visible even from Jupiter. Space telescopes, long dead, flickered to life, transmitting the final image humanity would ever send. A blue planet wrapped in golden light, pulsing like a beating heart. Then the transmission ended. There was no apocalypse. No end. Only transformation. The universe had simply awakened, and deep within that eternal dream, where silence and sound were one, Maya whispered her last human thought. "We were never small. We just forgot how big we really are." The stars pulsed in reply, and the dream continued forever.